Imagine an army of 10,000 Americans marching with rifles across their shoulders, not to fight a foreign enemy, not to defend their country, but to fight their own government, their own police, and their own neighbors. Airplanes will drop bombs on them. Machine guns will be turned on them. And almost nobody outside of one small state has ever heard their story. This is the largest armed uprising in America since the Civil War, and it happened less than 100 years ago. Welcome back to American History Chronicles. If you're new here, we uncover the forgotten wars that shaped America, the ones history class skipped over. Before we start, hit subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Now, let's go back to the mountains of West Virginia in the year 1921. By the early 1900s, the coal fields of southern West Virginia weren't really part of America in any normal sense. They were their own world, and coal companies owned almost all of it. Miners didn't live in their own homes. They lived in company towns, in houses owned by the company. They weren't paid in real dollars. They were paid in company scrip, currency that could only be spent at the company store at whatever prices the company decided to charge. They worked in brutal, often deadly conditions, thousands of feet underground, for wages the company alone controlled. If a miner spoke out or tried to organize, he could be evicted from his home in a single day by armed guards hired by the company itself. Those guards came from a private security firm called the Baldwin Felts Detective Agency, and in the coal fields, their name alone was enough to terrify people. They weren't there to protect the law. They were there to protect the company's profits, by any means necessary. By 1920, miners across the region had had enough, and thousands of them began joining the United Mine Workers of America, hoping a union could finally give them a fighting chance. The coal companies responded exactly how you'd expect. They fired union miners on site, evicted their families from company housing, and brought in Baldwin Felts agents to crush the movement before it could spread. That collision came to a head in the small town of Mattawan in May of 1920. The local police chief, a young man named Sid Hatfield, refused to take the coal company's side. When Baldwin Felts agents arrived to evict striking miners' families, Hatfield confronted them, and a gunfight broke out in the middle of town. By the time it ended, 10 men were dead, including the founder of the Baldwin Felts agency himself. To the miners, Sid Hatfield became an instant legend, a lawman who had actually stood with them instead of against them. The coal companies never forgave him for it. On August 1st, 1921, as Hatfield climbed the courthouse steps in a neighboring county, Baldwin Felts agents were waiting for him. They shot him dead in broad daylight, in front of witnesses, in front of his own wife. No one was ever meaningfully punished for it. For the miners, that was the final straw. Word of Hatfield's murder spread through the coal fields like wildfire, and within days, thousands of armed men began gathering. Miners, many of them World War I veterans who knew exactly how to organize an armed force. They tied red bandanas around their necks so they could recognize each other in the field, a detail some historians believe is the origin of the term redneck. What started as a few hundred angry men grew, within 2 weeks, into a marching army of somewhere between 10 and 15,000 miners, headed straight for Logan County, the last stronghold of anti-union power, ruled by a sheriff named Don Chafin, a man almost entirely bought and paid for by the coal companies. Standing in their way was Blair Mountain itself, a long, rugged ridge that Chafin's forces fortified with trenches, machine gun nests, and roughly 3,000 armed defenders, including hired guns, police, and vigilantes. On August 25th, 1921, the two sides collided, and for the next several days, the ridges of Blair Mountain turned into an actual battlefield in the middle of the United States. Gunfire echoed through the hills nonstop. Miners advanced position by position under machine gun fire. Some later estimated that over 1 million rounds of ammunition were fired during the fighting. And then it got even stranger. Sheriff Chafin, unwilling to lose, chartered private airplanes and had them fly directly over the miners' encampments, dropping homemade bombs packed with gunpowder, nuts, and bolts. For the first time, But not the last time that year. American citizens were being bombed from the air on American soil by their own government's allies. President Warren Harding, watching the situation spiral completely out of control, finally sent in federal troops and U.S. Army airplanes to end it. And that changed everything. The miners hadn't come to fight the United States military. Many of them were veterans who had proudly worn that same uniform less than 3 years earlier. Rather than turn their guns on federal soldiers, most of the miners laid down their weapons and went home. By September 2nd, it was over. Estimates of the dead range from around 20 to as many as 100, though the true number has never been confirmed. Records were incomplete, and many bodies were quietly buried without official reports. Nearly 1,000 miners were arrested in the aftermath, many charged with murder and even treason against the state of West Virginia. Bill Blizzard, the man who became the miners' de facto leader after their earlier organizers fled, stood trial for treason and was acquitted. Most others were acquitted as well, or received only minor sentences, largely because public sympathy across the country had shifted firmly onto the miners' side. In the short term, the Union movement in West Virginia was crushed. Membership collapsed, and it would take over a decade before mine workers in the region successfully unionized again. But the battle didn't disappear. It became a warning the entire country couldn't ignore. Stories of armed miners, private bombing runs, and federal troops fighting American citizens on American soil forced a national reckoning over how workers were being treated. Within just over a decade, the outrage that Blair Mountain represented helped fuel the labor protections built into the New Deal, laws that, for the first time, gave American workers the federally protected right to organize and collectively bargain. Today, Blair Mountain itself still stands in West Virginia, and for years afterward, the battle was treated less like history and more like an embarrassment, something the state quietly buried, the same way so many of its dead were quietly buried at the time. It's rarely taught in schools. It rarely appears in documentaries. But for 1 week in 1921, thousands of ordinary American coal miners took up arms against their own government, and airplanes dropped bombs on American soil, not from a foreign enemy, but from Americans on Americans. It remains the largest armed uprising this country has seen since the Civil War itself, and one of the most important wars in American history that almost nobody has ever heard of.